Flautas the same as taquitos? That's what we'll be talking about on today's bite-sized talk. My name is Gary, aka Hempy. Arguing against me today is Julian. Say what's up, man.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Joop. I think they're the same. Gary's just going crazy here because he's brainwashed by California. And joining us as well is Leona.
What's up, Leona here. I will be the judge and executioner. And you, audience, are going to choose in the end which one of these is what you think is true. Hempy says that flautas are made from flour and taquitos are made from corn. And Joop says that it doesn't really matter. Same shit, different role. So let us know in the comments below at the end what you think. Now let the Mexican standoff begin.
First of all, Mexican standoff, nothing happens. Right? Like, that's the whole
Exactly.
That's the whole point here.
All right, so you're right. Opening statements time. All right. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, at a certain point, things change. They evolve. Mr. Joop is going to make the case that there is no difference between a flauta and a taquito. He may even go as far as saying taquito is just a small taco. In a simple, overgeneralized view, that may be so, but we are talking about the 1600s here. You will see evidence, and I want you to think: when did the burger stop being a sandwich? What makes a patty melt different than a burger? The answer to that is resolution, the ability to differentiate between 2 points. In the American spirit of innovation, we must challenge the historical context of flautas, and see if we could further resolve it into the modern state of the Mexican food. I will present the modern day understanding of the taquito and why it should be recognized as its own entity. And with that, I'll allow Mr. Joop to say his opening statement.
Mr. Joop, what do you say to that?
I'm just winging this shit. Flautas and taquitos are literally the same thing. There is no difference. Simply put, that the flautas were invented in the 1400s, probably 1300s, way before that. And the taquito was a way of California bringing it into the U.S. That's the only difference that it has. They both have the same ingredients, the same way of making it. The only difference is it has a different name. Yeah, is a hamburger the same, different from a sandwich? Yeah. But is a green chili cheeseburger and a regular cheeseburger a little bit different? Possibly. But they're both cheeseburgers. So I think they're the same.
Okay, well, Mr. Hempy, would you like to present your evidence?
All right, so let's get into it. Pull out the notes here. So, what is a flauta? What does that mean? Right. For historical context, it comes from the word flute. Right. It's actually Spanish for the word flute.
Very interesting.
So, if you wanted to generalize it, you would say it's a rolled taco, and it was called a flauta because it resembled a flute in appearance. Now, I don't think back then they took the time to sit there and resolve whether is it a flute or is it a piccolo, or is it just a whistle? Like, what type of device is this, right? They didn't have the ability to resolve beyond what they had. I think it's also interesting, this being a Spanish word, that it was the Spaniards who brought over wheat flour. Thus, the flour that was used to create the first flour tortilla. That was not a thing in the Americas before the Spaniards came here. So, I mean, there's a connection there between them bringing the Spanish word for what we're referring to, the flauta, and the fact that we're using their flour in this process. Now, it's a known fact that flour tortillas are larger than corn tortillas. So if you're to roll up one of these, which one would look more like a flute? Shorter, smaller corn tortilla? Or the one that would make more elongated shape like that of a flute, like the flour tortilla would? Okay. And why? So if that was the case, why have we accepted the the corn tortilla for being a flauta. I mean, it might have to do with the fact that there's a big economic difference in buying these. The flour tortilla takes more to grow the crops for it. It's more processing to make. Thus, it was restrictive in a lot of households on who's going to have flour tortillas. So, as the flauta was coming up, and we have a new platform, there's a lot of people who are just not able to use both all the time. So yeah, maybe they defaulted to a corn tortilla, but which one really represents a flauta and what the word means, a flute? As Julian said, the taquito is a word from Southern California. That's where it was, we'll call it branded in the early 1900s in San Diego. And because of that, I'll keep it to the context of Southern California. One expects that the taquito is to be made with a corn tortilla. A rolled taco comes out in a flour tortilla. One would be taken back by this. Well, you messed up my order. This isn't what I ordered. I ordered taquitos. Right? Now, I doubt the opposing counselor is going to say that flour tortillas are not flour or not actual tortillas themselves. Nor do I think that he'll say flour tortillas can't be used as a flauta. So if anything, he's just saying you could roll up anything, fry it, and call it a flauta. But in light of this expectation of solely using a corn tortilla for taquito, it was because of this innovation, this wide acceptance, that the flour tortilla was made as the default for the flauta. Now, of course, to appreciate this level of resolution, you had to grow up in a household that had both flour tortilla as common as or as available as the corn tortilla. You had to grow up in a 2 tortilla household, which not all of us did. And in fact, I would say even though many in the Mexican community experience this luxury of having both tortillas available at all time, I know plenty of people who didn't. They used corn tortillas for everything. And though they are similar, they are not completely interchangeable. As James Franco said, same, but different, but still same. For example, if I say, do you want a quesadilla? Are you expecting a flour tortilla or a corn tortilla to be used? Pretty sure you go to Taco Bell, you don't want a little quesadilla coming out the size of a small pancake. You want a big old either half moon or a big ass quesadilla. Same thing like if I was to say, hey, do you want a taco? Aren't you expecting that to come out in a corn tortilla? But these things are not the same, and that's why I believe that in light of the recent history of what's happened, the taquito stands on its own. At this point, I'll close my statements and open up to Mr. Joop to make his case and provide counter arguments.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hempy. That was a compelling argument. I see your point. In a way, it makes me think of whether if you order a burger and they hand you a sandwich, can you be like, oh, well, same, but different? I mean, if they put the burger in a sandwich bun, like to what degree does it no longer become a burger? If they gave me a burger bun but didn't put the burger in there, would it still be a burger? So it's really coming down to like the philosophy of like what makes up the name, and so how many things you can take away from it until it's no longer that identity. And with that, I'd like to open up evidence to Mr. Joop. Please provide your evidence for why they are no different.
So he's saying that flautas have flour tortillas, but if we go back to when they were originally made by indigenous people, they would use corn tortillas all the time. And even though he says that there's households that might not have the economic means to buy flour tortillas, so they make them out of corn tortillas. Even before then, they were made with corn tortillas because before wheat was introduced, they were using corn tortillas. If they started using flour tortillas, it was because that's what
Objection.
Yes, Mr. Hempy.
we're using the word that comes from the Spanish, right? We're calling these flautas,
Flautas, yes.
correct? And that came over with the Spaniards in the 1600s. I would like to refute any evidence coming before that time period.
But that's when they were created. Flautas were created before that. And they
Yeah, so at
translated.
the same
They
so
translated
at
the
the same
word.
excuse me, at the same introduction of wheat flour for the flour
No,
tortillas.
it was
So the flauta,
translated from flautas from the
as
indigenous
defined,
people.
as defined, it came about the same time from where that word was created.
No, because the word was simply translated. It wasn't created, it was translated.
So they said, "What do you guys use for the word flute?" They didn't think like, "Oh, hey, it looks like you're eating a flute."
I mean, I wasn't there, but if I translate it, and it didn't come from it wasn't named by the Spanish. The Spanish found it from the indigenous people, and then they translated to flautas.
I would like to see your evidence to say that they were calling it flutes beforehand, and not just making up an assumption that it was there and they were calling them flutes. They could have called them something completely different.
Well,
Yes, Mr. Joop, let us see the evidence.
if you look up flautas and when they were created, it was before the Spanish got here. It was from the indigenous people. Flautas themselves were created by indigenous people before the Spanish got here.
But did they call them flutes?
Whether
Because
they
you're
did or they
poisoning your
didn't.
search. If you're saying, but the whole argument is the flauta, not something that's rolled. Because then we'll go back to China. They're making egg rolls forever.
No, flautas themselves. Where do they come from?
As far as they've been defined by that word,
Not by that word.
I can't.
The cuisine that we're talking about, that we're arguing about, the flautas. Where do they come from?
Again, this is a matter of resolution, Mr. Jupe, and I'd mind you to have you keep that in mind when making your argument.
I am making
No,
it.
I'll let it
And
go. I think he's making a compelling argument. The origins do matter because a lot of things are repurposed and taken out of culture. Especially Spain does like to do that. They like
but
to steal other people's cultures and then make it their own. So,
we rewrite their history. Thank you very much. But
for
Julian's
the sake of
making
the
the
indigenous
claim.
people,
He's making the unsubstantiated claim that they were called flutes prior to the Spanish, and the Spanish just translated it.
Jupiter, can you find evidence of that and pull that up on the shared screen? Oh, okay. Well, Mr. Joop, I see that you have presented some evidence. Would you like to go forth with it?
Yes. So the actual cuisine that we're bringing into question here comes from the indigenous people of Mexico. The name was used by the Spanish. Here you can see it says the word flauta is Spanish for flute, which refers to the long, thin shaped rolled tortilla. That's simply what the Spanish called it. Simply because I call a sandwich un emparedado does not make a difference. It is still a sandwich.
Again, getting back to the point, though, you said it was a translation that they were already calling them flutes, and that's what the Spanish translated. You have not supported that claim.
Okay. But we're talking about the food here. The flauta, the food.
Yeah, let's stick to the food.
Your Honor, with all due respect, he's allowing us to just rename something 400 years ago, but fighting the renaming here. What I'm establishing is that
That's
upon
exactly what I'm arguing is it was simply a renaming of the same food.
what I'm arguing though is that the introduction of wheat flour changes that landscape, and that we should look at things in the modern context and looking at the current state of the art rather than referring to something that's 1600s or older and not even knowing if that's what the indigenous people, if they were calling these, oh hey, let me make you a flute for dinner. It sounds like that would be some shit a Spaniard would say, looking at an indigenous person eating.
Your argument here is that flautas are made from flour tortillas and that taquitos are made from corn tortillas. And my argument here is no, traditionally they were actually made from corn tortillas regardless. And then they were named flautas. Doesn't matter whether they introduced wheat or not, they were already being made. They were called flautas. And then as we progressed in the 1940s, Somebody else in California now renamed it as taquitos. Still making it from corn tortillas, still using the same fillings, but simply did what the Spanish did to the flautas, rename it. It's the same thing. The same food, same thing.
I'll let it. I'll let it.
So to cross-examine here, you're allowing the renaming of it once. Why not twice?
You
I
can
mean,
rename
Why arbitrarily? Why arbitrarily stop resolving this problem? If you're allowing them, just because you provided no evidence that they were actually called flutes.
you can rename it all you want. It is the same food.
That is true. I do agree with that. You can, I mean, for the sake of being anti-colonialism and, giving credit to the origins of the culture, I think that it's plausible to say that the dish at some point was made out of corn and that's what it was. And then renaming things, I think in 10 years, if it goes back to a different name, but they still make it the same way, does it become a different dish? I would say no, it's not a different dish. You just gave it a third name.
Now, if you want to talk about it in modern times, yes, in your region they probably make the difference of flour tortillas or flautas and corn tortillas or taquitos. Yes, but you go to a different region in Mexico, they're still using corn tortillas or flautas.
For the record, where are we making this argument for?
Where?
What country are we in?
We're talking about the food, not the country.
But where are we currently collectively
In the U.S.
having this discussion in the United States?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And New Mexico uses corn tortillas for flautas, as I have established before in different restaurants.
So are you
in
saying
Mexico.
are you saying it's strictly corn tortillas?
Yeah, for the most part.
That you can't. Oh yeah, for the most part, no. That you made an absolute claim and then you not making an absolute justification.
It is rare to see. Is it rare? It's rare to see it with corn or flour tortillas. It's usually made with corn tortillas.
Is it proportionally rare to see people using flour tortillas in their everyday cuisine?
No.
Are most Mexicans foods not made with corn tortillas to begin with, because of their availability, because of their affordability?
No.
So you're making the claim then that corn tortillas are just as common as flour tortillas?
Yeah.
Your Honor, that is
What do you say,
painfully
Hempy? You think
disrespectful.
flour tortillas are more common than corn tortillas?
Without a doubt, there is no one who would make the claim that they're in equal proportion.
In where?
Nobody would make that.
In general?
Yeah.
In Mexico.
In
If
Mexico.
he's making the claim,
We're making an argument.
Exactly.
In the
Here
US?
we have both these yeah, but you were making the claim that all the foods are made with corn. Or you were saying that like that the Mexican people use both just as evenly, and then that's why they'll favor
Now they do.
that
Yes.
there's some reason why they only use corn. Wait, you know the flour tortilla is in a 1-to-5 ratio, 1-to-4 ratio to the corn tortilla in application.
No. You go to Mexico City 30 years ago, 35 years ago, they didn't even know what a burrito was. They probably knew or heard of it, but they never really had burritos out there, and that's in Mexico.
Because why? It was dominantly corn, you know?
No, they just didn't use flour tortillas as much
Why?
because it wasn't introduced yet. Now they start using it more.
It wasn't introduced till 40 years ago?
They
Your
didn't use
Honor.
it. They didn't use it as much in their cuisine because it wasn't the traditional way they make food.
It's been a part of their cuisine for the last 400 years, was it
Flour
not?
tortillas?
Was it not introduced 400 years ago to them?
Burritos?
Burritos? Yeah.
The flour tortilla.
What's
It
the
came
argument?
over with the Spaniards.
What's the argument here?
Well, you said that
You're
burritos
honestly
didn't exist in Mexico. I mean, in Mexico City.
in
It's,
Mexico City. It was very rare to see burritos. Yes, which is why I'm saying like, go ahead.
and
And why
burritos
is
are made
that?
from flour tortilla only.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that due to the cost, that the corn tortilla is not used, or the flour tortilla rather, excuse me, the flour tortilla is not used in most of the cases.
I mean, I would argue
The
that
corn,
corn tortillas taste better than flour tortillas. I mean, flour tortilla doesn't really have much flavor in it, where corn has a
what
very predominant flavor in it. It's probably cheap. It's
one?
also cheaper to make corn than it is to make flour.
Yeah, but his argument
Yeah,
is that flour tortillas are not used as commonly as corn tortillas in Mexican food, and I'm telling him, well, it depends where you go. It depends on how their cuisine is, their gastronomy. It depends on the region. It doesn't matter whether it's available or not.
okay, a couple things, Your Honor. One, no offense, but you've probably never had a legit flour tortilla. And you're saying they don't. If you're saying they don't have flavor, oh, those things are delicious. Julian, can no.
Yeah, they are. They are pretty good.
Yeah. So we need to educate you, Your Honor. I'm sorry about that, but we'll need to send you some real flour tortillas at some point. We
I
need
mean,
to
I've had
address
flour
that.
tortillas in like America, like in New Mexico and in New York, and
She's
I honestly
also
don't like tortillas at all. But
she also has a
the
gluten
corn
allergy, right?
tortillas that I had in,
Uh,
yeah, I do. But the corn tortillas that I had in Mexico, I thought they were actually pretty good. Like normally I would not even eat them because they just taste horrible to me, but the ones in Mexico were good, and apparently they were made out of corn.
So something I've
did
learned.
you have a did you have a flour tortilla while you were there?
No, I think they only had corn tortillas there.
So
Just
really
one.
quick,
Thank you.
something I've learned about people who have a gluten allergy is that once they eat something with gluten, it feels chewy to them because they're so used to not eating gluten. When they eat gluten or gluten food that has gluten, it feels like really chewy, really mushy, weirdly. Is that
I
true,
mean,
Lee?
it's just the flavor. Like I just don't like the flavor of tortillas
Yeah.
in general. Like I just eat around it. Like I eat the insides and stuff. I just normally don't even eat. The corn ones are actually good, but the flour ones, like burritos, like anything like in a wrap, I don't even eat wraps. Like when they make like sandwich wraps, I just hate that like taste. It tastes like cardboard.
Again, Your Honor, I think it's the platform. It's you're there's not a whole lot of Mexicans that have made it up to New York, and I'll even say this:
A lot
that
of
it's hard.
Mexicans
It's
here.
hard. It's harder to find a good, like an authentic flour tortilla than it is a corn tortilla. Again, just due to the availability,
I mean,
due to
sure. I mean, I
the
don't think
wide the
you'll find
wide
a corn
variety.
tortilla in New York at all. I think all tortillas are flour tortillas in New York. It's
Yeah, you're
either
probably
they're
very.
all flour or there's just like a mixture of corn and flour.
Yeah, they're probably very shelf stable, store bought flour tortillas. But if you actually have legitimate, like fresh ones made from hand, like there is, you can literally just put a little bit of butter or something, just eat them like that. Like if you have legit ones, it's a game changer.
I had
Um,
like fresh nacho chips made in a Mexican restaurant in New York, and they were still like meh.
Again, but the nacho chip, as you called it, which I'm not sure I completely understand what you're referring to, Your Honor. I
You know,
believe
the
that
chips
would be
that
a
they give
corn.
you with the salsa.
That's going to be a corn chip.
I don't know if they
Homemade
only
flour.
make it with corn though. I don't think
The,
that it's only corn.
a flour tortilla, when fried, is too dainty.
I guess so. But if what about a ratio mix?
Nope. I don't know anybody who hybridizes
Actually,
their
they sell
tortillas.
taquitos at Walmart that are supposedly corn tortillas, but they have a flour and corn mix.
Okay, anything that's called Old El Paso, right? That falls directly in the Tex-Mex thing, which is, but that should be stricken from the record. The jury should be
It,
advised to.
and that's another
Should,
thing. I've seen taquitos at Walmart, the actual packs, with flour tortillas.
again, that's a complete adulteration of what we're talking about here.
That's the same thing they did
We're
with
talking
flautas in your region. They say, oh no, it's only flour tortillas now. They did the same thing.
because they had something that emerged, that evolved, that changed the landscape.
So could we say that
We're not
taquitos
talking
have
about.
evolved to flour tortillas now? Since that's how they're
Are
selling
you
them?
gonna? Are you accepting those taquitos, or whatever you want to refer to them as legitimate Mexican food?
No, I'm simply saying that if we
Okay,
say
okay.
if we
So
say if we go
okay,
with you, if we
can,
go
can
with
we?
your argument that you say that things evolve, things change, then you would accept that taquitos go with flour tortillas according to that distributor of taquitos.
No, I'm not agreeing with that distributor. I'm saying that distributor is wrong.
So it should
I
be
we
it should
not.
be called taquitos because that's what it was originally made out of, corn tortillas.
They didn't hire me as a consultant. I can't attest to why they decided to go down that rationale. I'm not here to defend that company,
Uh-huh.
but I can tell you anybody who's making a microwavable taquito doesn't have a dog in this fight. They don't get they don't get a, that should not be a valid piece of evidence.
I'm just saying they did the same thing to your taquito. So if in your argument you're saying that you should accept things as they evolve, then you should accept that as well. But what I'm saying is
That-
let's stick to
I'm
the
not
origins and say, hey,
not
look,
every mutate
let's say this thing looks the same, tastes the same, is made the same, so it's the same food just with a different name.
not every mutation's an evolution.
Yeah, well, they're doing pretty well for themselves if they're selling in the big box companies.
Yeah, and cancer is a thriving industry. What of it?
Irrelevant, Your Honor.
No, that's a cellular mutation that's unchecked, and
I
it's
don't think it
damaging
pertains
to the
food
society.
here.
That food is likely not to be. I'm not going to call it cancerous. It can't be too good for you either.
Irrelevant.
Yes, you are. I find you irrelevant. All right, let's get to closing statements. Julian, I'll let you start.
No?
All right, well, to end this Mexican standoff, Mr. Hempy, would you like to give your closing statement?
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it is time for you to cast your vote in the comments. Do you want to live in a world where you could be served a hamburger, but it comes out on Wonder Bread? I think not. By stating flautas are made with flour tortillas and taquitos are made with corn tortillas, you will add a little bit of clarity and structure into this chaotic world. This is by no means disrespect to the history of the flauta. This is just a recognition that times have changed and that our institutions need to clarify their standpoint to prevent delicious disappointments during the next trip to your favorite Mexican food establishment. Thank you for your consideration. I know you'll do the right thing.
Thank you, Mr. Hempy. Mr. Joop.
Well, he said mutations are wrong, change is wrong, and then he said, you know what, change is good, maybe we should accept it. So what really is he arguing here? Can you understand it? Me neither. I believe that the origin of the flauta is from corn tortillas. Maybe it changed a little bit out in California. Maybe they started using flour tortillas. But regardless, the origins stay the same. It has a different name, but it's still made the same, tastes the same, has the same ingredients. It is the same food, simply rebranded, as so often those white folks do. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Joop.
I hope all your quesadillas are made on corn tortillas.
To the audience and the jury. If you ordered a flauta or a taquito, what would you like it to look like when it came out? Would you be able to know the difference if you tasted one or the other? Or then one and the other? Let us know in the comments below.
All right, guys. Thank you for playing along. If you've been staying along this time, and hopefully you'll see that Julian made no sense and had no structure to his argument. He did not prepare notes. They're just going off of But, give us a like and subscribe if you had fun or you laughed at least once during this. We appreciate it.
No notes, and I still take his ass. That's right. Thank you, everybody. Take care.